So I remember calling my mother when I was going for the job interview, and I just said, I just don't know. I don't know if I can do this. And she was just like, get it together.
She doesn't sound like someone who's going to tell you not to try.
She was really not sympathetic. She said, Cecile, this is the most important healthcare organization in the country for women. Of course you got to try for this.
We have over 100 people signed up from yesterday.
That's fantastic. Very good. Well, that's the ultimate sign of whether good intentions actually then, produce results.
I mean, given that it is such a contentious topic and it's such a contentious organization.
It's not a contentious organization. In fact, it's actually one of the most broadly supported organizations in the country.
But it is a focus of...
It's a focus of the Republican Party. But honestly, I actually think defunding Planned Parenthood is very unpopular because for a lot of women, they don't think it's a political organization. They think it's where they go to get affordable birth control. We decide. I love now that women of all stripes are running for office in the US. Women who look different, who come from different places, who dress differently, and that women are taking joy in that success. It's exciting.
Cecile Richards is an activist powerhouse. From ending voter suppression to fighting for a woman's right to have an abortion, Cecile is on the front lines, demanding justice. But long before she became a progressive icon, she grew up in a hotbed of American conservatism, Texas. Thank you so much for sitting down with us, but I did want to rewind a little bit. You grew up in Texas in a very politically active family, right? I mean,
yes.
What was that like? Were you out protesting and marching when other kids were at the movies?
Well, it's funny now, and of course Texas is a lot in the news now, but I grew up in Dallas, Texas, and my parents were liberals.
They were involved in the civil rights movement and the farm workers movement.
Every movement that came through town. And then the women's movement, my mother just completely lost her mind. That was so exciting. And yeah, I mean, other families were bowling and we were sorting precinct lists, for whatever campaign my parents were working on. So it was really much more just like a way of life. It was what our family did.
So were dinners just a discussion of what America was and what America should be?
Actually, dinners were mainly my father ranting and raving about whatever injustice that he was. He had a short fuse, still does. My dad was a labor lawyer. My mother was what we called a housewife, but she was involved in every campaign.
Cecile watched her mum, Ann Richards, take activism out of the kitchen and straight to the Capitol.
I know if the turnout is good and if the turnout is big in Texas, I'm going to win this election.
Richards worked her way up in government, winning the Texas gubernatorial seat in 1990. She's the last Democrat to hold the office.
There was always just a sense that you were put on this earth to make a difference.
Was there ever a point where you rebelled against that, or you questioned kind of the politics that you were born into?
I mean, I guess we all had our moments of rebellion, but mine was never about politics. I mean, I did and really still do look up to my parents for having charted that path. Essentially, they raised me to be an activist, and I always have been.
In middle school, Cecile was sent home for protesting the Vietnam War. And after graduating from Brown University, she became a labor organizer, where she met her husband. You have 3 children.
Yes.
Is it a given that you are all very politically involved?
It's a family affair, absolutely. In fact, I'll never forget when President Obama was elected. My twins weren't old enough to vote, but everyone had been door knocking and, phone banking, and I guess you could kind of mark our family's history by presidential elections.
That's quite significant because I feel like most families, it's there, but it's very much in the background of things.
It's like our bread and butter. One daughter works in politics. My son's a public school teacher, but extremely politically involved. And my daughter Hannah, who lives in Africa now, is an activist. And maybe that is somewhat unique, but it's something we all share.
We're not here today to deny the far right their participation in politics.
Cecile's career zigzagged across the country and causes. She founded the grassroots organization Texas Freedom Network, as well as America Votes, an initiative to increase voter turnout for Democrats. She also served as Nancy Pelosi's deputy chief of staff. But in 2006, Planned Parenthood came knocking, turning Cecile into a household name. You joined Planned Parenthood in 2006 and served as the president there for over a decade.
Yes. So many people look to the organization as a lifeline. Women who don't have insurance, women who are students, women who just need a trusted source of health care. I remember calling my mother when I was going for the job interview, and I just said, I just don't know. I don't know if I can do this. And she was just like, get it together.
She doesn't sound like someone
Get it together. She was
try.
really not sympathetic. She said, Cecile, this is the most important healthcare organization in the country for women. Of course you've got to try for this.
The roots of Planned Parenthood can be found in Brooklyn. In 1916, Margaret Sanger opened the first birth control clinic, bringing contraception to the masses. She believed that women should be able to decide when and whether they have children so they can gain equity. And she wanted to stop dangerous back alley abortions. Today, Sanger is recognised as a hero for reproductive rights, as well as a deeply flawed woman who supported eugenics. But Planned Parenthood's mission of providing healthcare and family planning for all women lives on, in spite of its opponents.
Only 17% of my generation agree with Planned Parenthood. Join the 21st century.
Given that it is such a contentious topic and it's such a contentious organisation, was there any hesitation in you joining?
Well, first, I would just say it's not a contentious organization. In fact, it's actually one of the most broadly supported organizations in the country, not because of any brilliance on my part or anyone else's, but because we provide health care to folks. And
it is a focus of, conservative.
It's a focus of the Republican Party. But honestly, the reason I challenge you on this is because I actually think defunding Planned Parenthood is very unpopular. Because for a lot of women, they don't think it's a political organization. They think it's where they go to get affordable birth control or their annual checkup. We absolutely provide safe and legal abortion, which is incredibly important. And we do a lot of other health care as well.
From STI testing and cancer screening to hormone therapy and pap smears, Planned Parenthood says they provide 9.8 million health services each year, operating out of more than 600 centres across the country. According to the organisation, abortions make up 4% of those services. But the pro-life movement sees Planned Parenthood as a dangerous baby-killing machine.
See senior officials at Planned Parenthood laughing over sips of wine, bargaining over the sale of body parts of unborn children.
Is it possible to take the politics out of abortion rights?
I hope so. I mean, it's not a political issue. It is a personal issue. And trusting women or pregnant people to make their own decisions more than you trust the government, that is, I think, just a fundamental American value.
Every woman has value. My body, my choice. Her body, her choice.
Over the years, Cecile was tasked with making all health services more accessible. But because that access to care included abortion, she became the target of continued attacks. During your time at Planned Parenthood, you were called all sorts of names: evil, mass murderer, baby butcher, what have you. I mean,
still am.
You don't seem like someone who's particularly fazed by those kind of accusations. Was there ever a point where you felt like, your family or your safety was at risk?
I really never worried about myself. I did worry about our doctors and our healthcare providers, because really when you look at what happened and the kinds of attacks, it was on our frontline folks. And that's a serious issue, and that weighed on me a lot.
This is what it looks like inside the Planned Parenthood clinic in Brainerd. Investigators have determined that some sort of fuel was used to ignite a fire here early Wednesday morning.
In the decades since Roe v. Wade passed, there have been over 40 bombings and nearly 200 arson attacks, targeting abortion clinics across the US. But in most developed countries, abortion is now part of basic government-funded healthcare. I mean, I'm from the UK, where...
You're probably going, what are you guys, what is your problem?
I mean, kind of.
Of course.
To be honest,
it's crazy.
I mean, in the UK, abortion is just not front and centre.
Exactly.
That debate is it feels like it sailed a long time ago.
Even Ireland ahead of us.
Yeah,
I know.
Most places, I mean, not most, there's still a lot going on in Poland, a lot going on in Latin America,
Correct.
certain parts of the rest of the world, but a lot of the rest of the world has moved on.
Has moved on.
And
Exactly.
I'm wondering, why is it that abortion debate is so front and center and is so politically divisive in the US?
Fundamentally because the Republican Party has decided that it is an important political wedge issue that can help them attract a part of the electorate that can help them win elections. I remember when there were Republicans in Congress and in the United States Senate who supported abortion rights, who supported Planned Parenthood. But now it has become the dogma of the party that if you support that, you can't be elected. I mean, Donald Trump himself, was a Planned Parenthood supporter. Mitt Romney, who ran against President Obama, was a Planned Parenthood supporter.
This dogma has provoked efforts to stop Planned Parenthood from receiving federal funds, which, if successful, would deprive millions of women and men of access to critical care.
And when they vote to repeal and replace Obamacare, we will finally defund Planned Parenthood.
You don't seem like someone who dwells on any negative elements of anything, really. You seem extremely positive.
It's not so worth it. I don't want to seem like a martyr, and I also want to make it really clear, that for every person that has come up and said something nasty, there have been 99 women who've come up to me and said, thank you for Planned Parenthood. I do think we tend to underestimate how much the fundamental ability of women to access their health care and make their own decisions, how much support that has in the United States.
Every life is precious, regardless of race or class, including the lives of the unborn children.
The battle over reproductive rights is heating up.
It's the ongoing saga of Republicans attacking women's health.
It's personal. In this case, it's very personal about decisions that women have to make about the size and timing of their families.
Over 400 restrictive abortion laws have passed across states in the last 10 years, and 18 abortion-related cases are now in the pipeline to the Supreme Court. Any one of them could threaten Roe v. Wade, the right for a pregnant woman to have an abortion. Can you understand why, so many people who do believe in access to free and safe abortions are so disheartened at the moment and so worried and depressed and feel like there is so much gloom ahead of us?
Of course, it's hard to have a federal judiciary that's now been completely stacked against us. That is discouraging. Roe is still the law of the land, they say, but I think in 7 states now in the US, there's only one abortion provider left. So if you live in rural America or if you live in a conservative state, access can be incredibly limited. Ultimately, we have to pass laws at the state level and at the congressional level. I think for a long, long time, the abortion rights movement relied on the Supreme Court, and that simply isn't possible anymore.
Women's rights are human rights. Women's rights are human rights.
People in certain states have been pretty successful at chipping away at various abortion rights depending on where in the country you are. And obviously now the Supreme Court is very tipped towards the conservative edge. Do you feel like there was anything that the pro-choice movement could have done differently? Or do you feel like there was any complacency around Roe v. Wade being assumed that it was secure and safe?
I think there was sort of a lack of complacency. I just think it's like work that is never finished, that's going to have to continue forever. I mean, to me, the real problem is that something that is a constitutional right, at least on paper, depends on your zip code, depends on your income, it depends on what state you live in. And that, to me, it means it's not really a right. It's certainly not a right that's equally held by women and people in this country.
And what are the repercussions? What happens if Roe is overturned?
I think what happens is women will die. I mean, that's why Roe was passed in the first place. I think people forget that it wasn't that abortion didn't exist before Roe versus Wade. It was just illegal and unsafe. I just hate to think that we're a country that would allow that to happen again. And I think we are better than that in this country, but sure, that really hurts. And we're all going to be paying for it for a long, long time. And not just the abortion rights movement. I mean, voting rights, civil rights, LGBTQ rights. We're all going to be in this together.
I mean, obviously, you've been so involved in politics for so much of your life, and I'm sure there'd be so many people who would love to see you run for office yourself, and equally a lot of people who would hate to see that. But I'm wondering whether you see that in your future at all.
You know, I've learned now never to say never. I've been an organizer and activist. I've had such a, honestly, blessed life and career of being always in the forefront of social change, and I'm happy doing that. And I love seeing other women elected to office, and I take great joy in that. So, who knows what the future... So who knows what the future holds. But I remember when Mom ran for governor, and she was like a unicorn. It was like this woman, progressive woman in Texas, becoming governor. There was a certain way you had to be. You had to have a certain hairstyle, and you had to dress a certain way and all the things. I love now that women of all stripes are running for office. Women who look different, who come from different places, who dress differently, and that women are taking joy in that success. Women are now not only opening that door, but then kicking it open for everyone else. It's exciting.
More and more women are breaking down barriers to elected office each year, and Cecile has been one of the people working behind the scenes to make that happen. In 2019, she co-founded Supermajority, an advocacy group aimed at mobilizing women to get involved in politics, while pushing politicians to further gender equity.
Which is huge, and which has been led by women of color and Black women, as we know.
That's great.
So in 2019, you founded Supermajority, which is how would you describe it?
We kind of created it as a political home for women to help provide training, and then of course, activism and advocacy. From the day we launched Supermajority, we've just been overwhelmed with women from all walks of life. This last election, our main focus was on turning out women to vote, and it's been explosive.
Explain to people who, might feel like we've come so far with gender equality in this country and across the world. We don't need to talk about men's issues and women's issues, we need to talk about people's issues.
Well, the U.S., we are so far behind most industrialized countries on almost everything that has to do with gender equity.
Yeah, and I'm surprised in so many things, like maternity leave, it's like the second worst country in the world after Papua New Guinea.
It's seen as almost an individual failure. The workforce was never built for women to participate, and certainly not after they had kids. And of course, this pandemic has just exposed that in ways that are unimaginable. We spent $50 billion on bailing out the airline industry. We've spent almost nothing on either bailing out or supporting the childcare industry. In the US, I think we've had more than 2 million women leave the workforce. And in large part, it is not only that the economy is collapsing, but because they don't have any way to take care of their families and take care of their kids. So what if we actually, flipped the script and actually talked about the issues that prevent women from being part of the workforce? We have a long way to go, and I feel like this growing political power of women is going to give us an opportunity to do that.
In 2020, a historic number of women and women of color were elected to Congress, representing 40% of House Democrats and 14% of House Republicans. But that doesn't necessarily mean more unity. It does seem like the country, at least from the outside perspective, is becoming more and more divided. I'm wondering if you're worried that we're less able to kind of have those conversations and whether we're less likely to listen to the other sides of those arguments.
So I think we always have to be talking to people, not in partisan political terms or labels, but actually about folks' lived experience. And I do think it means we have to continue to be in conversation with people literally at the grassroots level.
And do you worry that those conversations are happening in their own kind of silos and their own echo chambers?
I think it's an enormous problem. It's one of the reasons that I believe that women talking to other women and becoming trusted sources of information for each other is so critical. Because if women across race and issue and experience began voting together, we could change politics in this country for the next century.
For Cecile, the work isn't about running the show. It's about empowering the next generation of leaders. In December 2020, Cecile announced that she'd be stepping down from her position in Supermajority to make way for her successor, Amanda Brown-Learman. I got on a Zoom call to talk about this shift. Hi, guys. Amanda, nice to meet you.
Very nice to meet you, too.
Cecile, it seems like a lot has changed since I last saw you.
This transition has been in the works for a long, long time. It's exciting, actually.
So what's happened? Talk us through it.
I guess this has sort of been my part of my sort of organizing philosophy for my entire life, which is to try to build things and leave them to the next leader. And so I'm excited to be able to do that at Supermajority.
So this had always been in the works, Amanda? You were always, you always knew that you were going to take on this role?
I feel like I've been preparing for this role for most of my life, actually. And so in many ways, it's a great honor to be able to jump in to do this work. And I'm excited to help write the next chapter of the Supermajority story.
And just in terms of what that practically means, I mean, we're still in the depths of this horrific pandemic that we've seen sweeping across the country, across the world, a pandemic that we know has disproportionately impacted women. I mean, what are the next steps? What are your priorities in terms of handling that and helping women get through it?
I stay up at night thinking about even the single moms who, have lost their jobs and are struggling just to feed their kids dinner. That's a reality for too many American women right now. And so the work that we have to do is make sure that we're continuing to elevate the issues of particularly marginalized women in our country.
Cecile, anything to add to that?
I mean, we started Supermajority understanding that there was structural inequity in the U.S. And now the opportunity, I believe, is to demand of our government that they actually center those experiences, because there is no recovery if women don't recover.
And so I know that you said you're going to be staying on, but does it mean that you're going to be taking on other ventures as well?
Oh, yeah. I am a perpetual motion person, and I don't know exactly what form it will take, but my entire life has been committed to social justice and economic justice, particularly for women. And so I'm not stopping. This is about the long-term systemic change we need in the U.S., and that's going to take all of us.